You won't believe what happened on my family's ranch last summer. I still shake my head thinking about it. Hollow Creek Ranch has been ours for generations, a sprawling 1,000 acres of rolling hills, pastures, and a creek that sparkles like a jewel. My biggest worries used to be drought or foxes sniffing around the lambs. But then a shiny new HOA popped up on our southern border, acting like it owned the whole county. Their golf cart driving, wannabe cops pushed me to the edge, and my dad, a wily old rancher with a knack for outsmarting trouble, cooked up a plan so clever it could only be called a masterpiece of rural justice. This tale is packed with petty drama, muddy chaos, and a victory so satisfying you'll want to cheer. Stick around, because it's a wild ride. Hollow Creek isn't some weekend hobby farm. It's over 1,000 acres of legacy, passed down from my great-grandfather to my dad, Amos, then to me, Nathan Caldwell. We've always lived in harmony with our neighbors, mostly other ranchers, in a quiet village a few miles away. That changed when Meadowview Heights, a cookie-cutter development of beige houses, swallowed up the old Wilson farm next to our southern fence. Overnight, we had hundreds of new neighbors and an HOA board that seemed to think their rules applied to our front porch. Trouble started small. A golf cart with a Meadowview Heights security sticker was parked just inside our property line, under a massive cottonwood tree that's technically ours. The fence there is simple 3 strands of barbed wire, more a suggestion than a barrier. I figured the newcomers were confused about the boundary. The first time, I waved. The 2 guys in the cart, wearing tight polo shirts and mirrored sunglasses like they were in a bad action movie, just stared back. I dubbed them Officer Chuck and Sidekick Pete. A week later, they were back, same spot, same smug vibes. I strolled over, keeping it friendly. "Afternoon, gentlemen," I said. "Just so you know, this is Hollow Creek land. Your property ends at that survey marker." I pointed to a concrete post in the grass. Chuck, a burly guy with a permanent scowl, barely glanced at it. "We're aware," he grunted. "Just keeping an eye out for community safety." Safety for whom? I wondered. "I appreciate the effort," I said, "but this is private property. We run sheep here, and I'd hate for your cart to spook them." Pete, leaner and younger, chimed in, "We're allowed to be here. For observation." Allowed by whom? I wanted to snap, but I stayed calm. "Look, I'm asking nicely. Stay on your side. There's shade over there, too." Chuck scoffed. "We'll park where it's necessary for Meadowview security." He drove off, not apologetic, but like he was humoring me. I stood there, a knot of disbelief in my gut. Necessary? On my land. A storm was brewing. I told Dad about it that evening. He was on the porch, whittling a stick, his gray eyes fixed on the horizon. When I finished, he spat into the dust and said, "Sounds like they need a lesson." That was Dad's code for troubles coming, and he's got a plan. His jaw had that stubborn set, the one he gets when a tractor won't start, and he's about to tear it apart. I knew the HOA was his new project. The parking didn't stop, it got worse. It was like my polite request was a dare. Now it wasn't just the golf cart, but a white SUV with Meadowview's logo, parked deeper onto our land. Chuck and Pete made it their mission to camp under our cottonwood, sometimes with binoculars, watching our fields like we were a reality show. I caught them scribbling on a clipboard once. What were they noting? "My prize ram, Tucker, is grazing." It was maddening. I put up bright yellow "no trespassing" signs on the fence. The next day, one was torn down, and another had a boot print on it. My patience snapped. This wasn't a mix-up, it was deliberate disrespect. I started documenting photos, dates, times, building a file. I tried contacting Meadowview's president, a guy named Gerald Hawthorne. Their website was like Fort Knox, but I found an email and sent a firm letter with photos, demanding they stop trespassing. A week passed. Then 2. Finally, a reply came, dripping with condescension. Hawthorne wrote that their community safety patrol was ensuring resident tranquility, implying their presence deterred rural threats. Rural threats? My sheep? Dad in his beat-up Ford? He suggested I better mark my property, as if my fence and markers weren't enough. No apology, just a hint I was the problem. I read it 3 times, each one stoking my anger. I showed Dad. He grinned grimly. "Better marking, huh?" he said. "We'll give him a line they won't forget." I knew the gloves were off. The breaking point came on a scorching August day. I was in the south pasture with my ranch hand, Javier, guiding a newborn lamb and its nervous mother toward the flock. It was dusty, delicate work. Then Meadowview's SUV roared up, kicking up dirt, parking 50 feet from us. Chuck and Pete hopped out, leaning against our fence like they owned it, watching us. The noise spooked the ewe. She bolted, the lamb stumbling after, undoing our work. I lost it. I stormed over, Javier behind me. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. Chuck didn't blink. "Just observing, sir. Standard patrol." "Patrol?" I yelled. "You scared my livestock and cost me an hour's work. You're on my land, interfering with my ranch. Get out now." Pete mumbled about checking for suspicious activity. Suspicious? I nearly choked. "The only suspicious thing here is that you are trespassing. This is a ranch, not your scenic lookout." Chuck adjusted his shades and said, "Mr. Hawthorne says our presence benefits community relations." I stared, dumbfounded. "Community relations?" I growled. "One more stunt, and you'll meet the sheriff. Now leave." Maybe the sheriff's mention worked, or my fury sank in, but Chuck motioned to Pete, and they climbed into the SUV. They idled for 5 minutes, just to be jerks, then revved and left. I was shaking with rage. Javier shook his head. "Boss, those guys have no respect." He was right. Respect wasn't coming easily. We'd have to force it. That night, I told Dad. He was cleaning his old rifle, a ritual for deep thinking. When I finished, he set it down. "Time to stop playing nice," he said. "They love that cottonwood shade. Let's make it less cozy." His eyes glinted with mischief. The next morning, he was in the barn, digging through old irrigation gear pipes, sprinklers, timers. "What's the plan, Dad?" I asked. He grinned. "A little landscaping, Nate. Call it precision watering." He held up a massive sprinkler head, built to soak a field. "Think our friends will enjoy a morning mist?" Dad's plan was brilliant in its simplicity. He scouted the fence line like a general, using his old surveyor's level, checking county maps, confirming our property line to the inch. He found our fence was slightly inside our true boundary, extra ammo, if needed. I kept documenting every trespass, photos, logs, timestamps. Dad insisted, "Paperwork's your shield if they lawyer up." We met with our lawyer, Tom Grayson, who confirmed the HOA had no rights on our land. Their safety patrol excuse was nonsense. "You could sue for trespassing," Tom said, "but legal fights are slow. Handle it practically, on your land, and you're fine. If their SUV gets stuck after ignoring warnings, that's their problem." Dad's eyes twinkled. He had his green light. The plan targeted a 20 by 20-foot patch under the cottonwood's shade, where Chuck and Pete always parked. Dad tilled the soil lightly, like we were prepping a garden. "Good aeration," he said, winking. Then we buried a water line from a nearby stock tank, hiding 3 heavy-duty sprinkler heads in the grass. These beasts could drench a football field. Dad wired an old timer to the pump, set to spray at random times when Chuck and Pete usually showed up late morning, mid-afternoon. "Just keeping our new seedbed moist," he said, all innocence. But he wasn't done. He had me shape a shallow dip in the patch, invisible but perfect for pooling water. We added hidden rocks and roots where tires would hit, then spread clay-rich compost to make it slick when wet. It took 2 days, done discreetly. To anyone watching, it looked like routine farm work. Dad surveyed the trap, hands on hips. "Now we wait," he said. "Maybe pray for a little rain to set the stage." I grinned. It was diabolical, legal, and poised to humiliate. A summer shower hit that night, priming the soil. The next morning was hot, perfect for shade seekers. At 10:30 a.m., Meadowview's SUV rolled up. My pulse raced. Dad, pretending to check a fence, gave me a thumbs up. Chuck drove, Pete beside him. They parked right in the trap, tires on our doctored soil. They cut the engine, probably smug in the shade. I watched my phone, 10:34. Then, at 10:35, it happened. With a thump and clacking, the sprinklers roared, blasting muddy water like fire hoses. Jets slammed the SUV, coating it in brown sludge. The windshield was a waterfall. The sides looked like a mudslide had hit. Inside, I saw frantic movement, Chuck and Pete panicking. Chuck started the SUV, slamming it into reverse. The wheels spun, digging into the clay, sliding sideways. Forward was no better. They were stuck, gloriously stuck, as the sprinklers pounded. After 2 minutes, the timer stopped, leaving a sopping, muddy mess. Chuck and Pete stepped out, their shiny shoes sinking into muck. Chuck's face was purple, yelling something I couldn't hear. Pete looked like a wet dog. They slipped, cursing, their uniforms ruined. It was better than I'd dreamed. Dad strolled up, barely hiding his grin. Unexpected irrigation, he said, voice dripping satisfaction. Then a black Lincoln Navigator arrived, Meadowview's king, Gerald Hawthorne, I presumed. He parked on their side, storming over in pristine golf clothes, looking absurd against our dusty ranch. What is this? He shouted. Your sprinklers ruined my vehicle. This is vandalism. Dad stepped up, calm as ever. Mr. Hawthorne, I'm Amos Caldwell. This is my son, Nathan, a ranch owner. Hawthorne sputtered, I don't care. You targeted my patrol. Hold on, I said. Your SUV's on our land. We've asked you to stop and sent letters. You ignored us. We're ensuring safety, Hawthorne snapped. By trespassing? Dad asked. As for the sprinklers, we're watering a new erosion control patch. Can't help it if your boys parked in our project. Hawthorne's face reddened. This is aggression. I'm calling the sheriff. Go ahead, I said. We've got photos, logs, and your letter. The sheriff will love it. Hawthorne called, and we waited. Chuck and Pete, muddy and defeated, trudged to him, muttering about traps. Deputy Sarah Klein, whom I knew from town, arrived. Hawthorne ranted about our malicious sprinklers. I explained the trespassing, showed the property line, and offered my evidence. Dad added, just growing grass, officer. Didn't expect a truck in our seedbed. Sarah inspected the scene, then turned to Hawthorne. Your vehicle's on private land without permission. Their sprinklers are their business. If it got stuck while trespassing, that's your issue. She told Chuck and Pete to respect boundaries or face citations, then left, suggesting a tow truck. Hawthorne fumed. Dad chewed a grass blade, smiling. The tow truck struggled for 2 hours to free the SUV, a spectacle we enjoyed with iced tea from the porch. Dad critiqued the tow guy's technique through binoculars. A week later, Meadowview's lawyer sent a letter accusing us of property damage and demanding thousands for the SUV's cleaning. We sent it to Tom, who fired back, rejecting their claim, countersuing for trespassing and sign vandalism, and offering a sarcastic landscaping consult. They never replied. Our sprinklers stayed active, spraying randomly. Chuck and Pete soon stopped nearing our fence, parking safely on their side. Word spread in Meadowview, denting Hawthorne's ego. Some residents, we heard at the feed store, mocked his heavy-handedness and the muddy fiasco. Their HOA meeting buzzed with complaints about his tactics and the patrol's cost. Dad made the patch permanent. We graded it properly, planting thorny wild roses along the fence, pretty but brutal. New no trespassing signs went up on steel posts. The cottonwood's shade stayed ours, enjoyed by sheep and deer. Peace returned. It wasn't just about parking, it was respect. Hawthorne's crew thought we'd cave. They didn't count on Dad, whose sprinklers and grit outwitted their arrogance. I learned to stand firm, document everything, and never underestimate an old rancher's cunning. A little muddy justice made our point clear. What's your take on this? Have you faced bullies like Meadowview's HOA, pushing their weight around? Share your stories in the comments, I read them all. Let's talk about standing up to injustice or dealing with violence in our lives. Where do you draw the line? Drop your thoughts below, and if you like this tale of rancher justice, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Keep your boundaries clear and your resolve strong.